Scott.
I'm Scott Bazylewiczs, and I'm bringing this to you today. So this is our venison goulash with fresh spätzle that we'll be making today. We're going to show you how to do it. It takes a little bit of time, but it's well worth the effort. And you can put it in a slow cooker and cook it for a longer period of time and not have to maintain it as much. Otherwise, on top of the stove, you need to continually stir it so that it doesn't burn and stick to the bottom. Because this does take a couple of hours to make, so you need to plan ahead. The spätzle is relatively easy. The goulash is relatively easy. It just takes a little bit of time and a little preparation. Well, I'm starting here with a venison top roast. And we're going to make Hungarian goulash out of it. It's a nice dish. We're going to cube it. But before we do that, we're just going to take any little bit of silver skin off that's left. That would make it tough. It's really easy. You just take the knife and you run it right underneath the fat. And you hold it up and the knife will go right underneath. Take it right off. It's a nice lean piece of meat, so a little bit of silver skin. See how the silver color is in there? That's why they call it silver skin. If you leave that on, it'll make it really chewy. Oh, that's pretty good. Just a little bit of fat here. It helps too that our roast is slightly frozen. It's not frozen solid, it's just got a little bit of temper to it. It'll be easier to cut. I'm going to make nice large size cubes. This is a moderate recipe. It takes a little bit of time to cook, but the reward is all in the end. There's the great flavor or the goulash. Okay, we're going to take and start up our pot here and get it warmed up. Put a little bit of olive oil in there. You want to put enough oil in there so that your meat isn't going to stick to the bottom. And we're going to add a little bit of flour later on to make a roux to make it thick. Let's just get a bowl. a nice dish that you can make in camp when you're out hunting, and it can be slowly cooking, so when you get back it's ready to go. You're going to let it slow cook for about 2 hours. So when you're out hunting, it could be cooking away and come back for lunch and it'd be all ready. Put that in the sink, we'll bleach it later. Okay. It's not quite hot yet. What I did here is I took a little bit of flour and I added some salt and pepper and some seasoned salt to it to make a little seasoned flour. That's going to add to our flavor base. Well, I have about a cup full of flour here, and I added about a tablespoon of salt and about half a tablespoon of white pepper. Like a popular brand is like Lori's. It's a mixture of different seasonings. There'll be onion powder, garlic powder, peppers, paprika is usually in there. Whatever you have in your kitchen will work just fine. Most people have it, and if they don't, you can always just add a little bit of salt to it and just go with the salt and pepper. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to lightly flour the meat and set it in the pan. Well, see in the pan how it's bubbling? That means we're good. If it wasn't sizzling, if it hit the pan and it wasn't sizzling, it's not quite hot enough. If you have more meat here than it's going to fit in the pan, what you want to do is do it in batches then, because you don't want to overfill your pan, because then the meat, instead of browning, it's going to steam. See, we'll just do what we have here and we'll let that cook for a couple minutes. Yeah, that's starting to brown up nice. We'll just do it in a couple of batches and we get it nice and brown. They don't have to be cooked all the way through because we're going to finish them off after we get them all brown. And you just continue with more. Being careful that the oil doesn't get too hot because you don't want it to burn. The little bits and pieces in there are fine, they're going to add to the flavor. Okay, as it gets hot here, we probably want to turn it down just a little bit. Get a medium heat now. second batch is browning up nice. Spread it out so the meat doesn't steam. Last cooking, we're going to cut up some onions for this. We'll julienne them. The short, nice little juliennes that'll match the meat. This may look like a lot of onions, but as this cooks, it'll dissolve in the sauce, and it'll be wonderful. The rest of the meat is nice and brown. We're going to add the onions. During that, now we're going to just brown up the onions nice. We'll add this meat back in. We're making Hungarian goulash out of venison. Nice, like hunter's stew. Now what I like to do is I like to start seasoning it. And put just a little bit of oregano in. Put a little bit of black pepper in. It's a good idea to pour the seasoning on your hand. That way if too much comes out of the shaker, you're not pouring it right into your food. We're going to go with a little bit of rosemary. I'm using dry rosemary. I really like fresh, but we don't have any fresh today. So what I'm doing is I'm rubbing it to get the herb to release the oils. So it seasons up our food. We're going to go with smoked paprika. We have about 2 tablespoons here. You can always add more when we're getting closer to being done. And we have dry thyme. We have about a teaspoon. We're going to rub that too to get the seasoning to release its flavor. There you can already smell it. Make sure you keep scraping all the bits off the bottom. You don't want it to turn black. Now we can turn it down just a little bit more. I'll add some garlic powder. Okay. I have diced tomatoes here. We're going to add a can of diced tomatoes, a can of water, let's make that 2 cans of water. We're gonna add about half a can of tomato paste. About half a can of tomato paste. And you can see here the water just covers the meat. It's going to reduce some and it's going to get thick. This is the water the liquid in the pan needs to just cover the meat. It'll reduce and it'll get thick as it cooks. What we're going to do is we're going to put that on a back burner here. And we'll let that simmer We'll let that simmer until the meat gets tender. Keep an eye on it, keeping an eye on it that it does not get too thick and start sticking to the bottom of the pan. Because if the liquid reduces too much, it'll dry up and start sticking to the bottom of the pan. Probably an hour, hour and a half. We'll check it every 15-20 minutes. We have our homemade spetzel. We'll put a layer of that down on the plate first. We'll take our Hungarian goulash made with venison. We'll just pour that right on the top. Boy, anybody be happy to get that for dinner. Smell that aroma.